Gemar Chatima Tova. It is the New Year season, and if we were following the Gregorian calendar, and this was January 1, we'd all be making resolutions. But we are Jews. We don't make resolutions, we make apologies. That's what Yom Kippur is about. I'm sorry, forgive me. I mean, it's kind of the dominant theme throughout Yom Kippur. And it makes sense, because according to Jewish law and understanding, when a person has made a mistake, that mistake can be erased with the fixing of the deed and the apology. And of course, we want to fix what we did and we want to apologize so it can be erased from the ledger, wiped away. In fact, according to the Talmud, when a person has committed a transgression and then it has been removed due to a wholehearted, sincere apology and doing teshuvah, it is counted as credit rather than debit from that point forward, because they overcame what they had done. That is not an excuse to go out and sin more just to earn extra points, by the way. The rabbis thought of that as well. You can't deliberately say, I'll sin and Yom Kippur will take care of it for me. That's no. We're also Jews. We're a little clever sometimes. But the reverse also holds true. What do I mean by reverse? I mean, if you regret the good that you do, then it is counted as though it were a transgression. So let's imagine you helped somebody, a neighbor that needed help with their rent, they needed help with their food, something that is unfortunately all too possible in our current situation. And then a few months from now, a year from now, they behave like a complete jerk to you. They are completely inconsiderate. They cut down a tree that was on your property when it wasn't their right to do so. Things that neighbors get angry about. And you say to yourself, I should have never have helped them. Should never have helped them make rent. What a fool I was for doing so. Absolute idiot. I regret that I did that. Well, you just flushed the mitzvah that you did by helping them and have turned it into an avera. You have flipped it over, if you will, gone from being for your credit to now being your debit. You are in debt now against them for having regretted an act that was good. And so I thought for something a little different this Yom Kippur, I would share with you the things that I am not going to regret. I'm going to tell you what I won't say sorry. I spent a lot of time apologizing. It does sort of go with the job of being a rabbi, as well as a father and a husband and a son and everything else in life. But there are some things I will not apologize for. So you might as well know and get used to it, because I don't want anyone waiting for the apology that will never come. The first one is very much in keeping with the original analogy. I will not apologize for being an optimist and thinking the best of people. Judaism teaches that we look at each other with kaf sachut. We look at each other on the side of merit. If there is possible interpretation of your behavior that explains it in some way that is not turning you into a mustache-twirling caricature of a villain, I will look for it. They're not being rude by being late for the meeting. Something else happened. The traffic lights in Florida, we know what those are like. There's something else that's, God, I hope they didn't get into an accident. I will not say, wow, how inconsiderate of them to be late. Because I would rather imagine that there is some other explanation. Yes, if I get no incontrovertible proof that it is something unfortunate, then yeah, I'll take someone to task. But in the meantime, I am not going to fill in the blanks in my understanding of other people's behaviors with malicious intent, with evilness, with rudeness, with pettiness, with anger or paranoia. As the recipients, as Jewish people, of 3,000 years of people doing exactly that to us, of those who misunderstand the Jews or didn't bother to understand why we were doing what we were doing, and who filled in their own narrative of the evil that we must be perpetrating behind our closed doors, I would feel absolutely ashamed if I were to do that to anyone else, whether it be on a national level or a personal. So, call me naive if you want, call me stupid if you want. I will look at the world with my optimistic eyes, and I will judge people on the side of merit unless they give me absolutely no choice. I'm not sorry. I am also not going to apologize for breaches of decorum. Now, this was a big deal back in the 1800s. It's one of the things that got the reform movement off the ground in the early days. Decorum. Those of you that are familiar with me now, and as Jeannie said, I've been here a while. This is my bar mitzvah, Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippur. You know that I'm a little bit of a goof. I'm a little sarcastic from time to time. And sometimes I will break character and make a comment that is there to elicit a small shift in perception, a little readjustment from either the gloom or the doom or the seriousness, because sometimes it is through laughter. Sometimes it is through those small breaches of decorum that people are shaken from their complacency and see things differently. And honestly, I can't help myself. Which is why I also have great patience and will never apologize for the fact that there are people in our community who will also breach decorum. Who am I? What kind of hypocrite would I be to say that a small child that needs to cry at that moment because there is a problem with their nappy, that's diaper for you Americans, there is something wrong with their tummy, and they need to cry. Who am I to say, get out of this room? How dare you breach the decorum of our room by raising your voice in a sound of need? If a child laughs, if a child wants to play, if a child needs the attention of a parent, am I going to say, get out? I have been in synagogues where that was the case, where children were banished, not just to a quiet room, but bring your children when you have raised them well enough to know how to behave in such a sacred space. And in the meantime, you and the child should stay home. Well, I've got news for you. That doesn't work. All you are teaching the child to do is not want to be in this place. All you are teaching the family is that they are not welcome in this place until they can properly behave as a 65-year-old. And as a little secret, most 65-year-olds don't behave properly either. So if someone looks to me to shush a noisy child or a family that's struggling to make it possible for them and their family and their children to be in this room, I'm sorry. I am not going to join you in shushing that child. I will not shoot dagger eyes at a family because they haven't got it all under control. It ain't easy to bring a family to shul, but it is even harder to have a shul if no one brings their family. So I am not apologizing for how the children will behave. Bring them, love them, let them laugh, let them cry. They're part of our family. And I will not be any more angry with them than I would be with my own kids. Don't ask my kids how often I'm angry. And that is not only for children. I know some of us will give a free pass for children and say, well, you know, they're children, children have to learn, blah, 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 blah. But you know, by the time you're a teenager, then you should be sitting ramrod straight in your chair, lips sealed, siddur neatly open on the page, finger tracing the words properly, mouth shut. Were none of you ever teenagers before? None of you ever excited to see a friend that you hadn't seen all week or perhaps for even longer and wanted to sit together, maybe even whisper together to catch up on things together? Should they not have that time here? Should I have to apologize to the rest of you because our teenagers are in shul and dare to actually be alive while sitting on those benches? Is that deserving of an apology? Because if it is, I'm sorry, you're going to be waiting a long time because I'm not giving you one. Because I would rather have them here and disrespectful than to have them not here and disappear. No apology coming. And so too for people that perhaps are having difficulty at different parts of the service. Maybe they have a disability. Maybe they have other illnesses that are having trouble. Maybe it takes them a little time to get up from their chair to come up to the bima. They might have a walker, a cane, a wheelchair. Should I have to apologize because our service slows down because they are doing so? Should we tell them, I'm sorry, you're not fast enough to have an honor for our services? I'm sorry, our service is going too long. We need to hurry it up. We'll have to go to someone else for this honor. Should I exclude them because they are not able to move at the proper pace? Absolutely not, and you will never get an apology from me that our service went over by 5, 10, half an hour, whatever it took to allow them to still be part of our community. I will also never apologize for anyone who dares to open their voice in song or prayer and sings off-key, or out of tune, or with a different tempo, or any slight mistakes. Someone who comes up and does an English reading, and maybe they stutter, maybe they slip, maybe they skip a line in their confusion, or just their nervousness of being up here in front of a congregation. There's no apology needed for that. Don't go looking for one. As someone who spent more than a decade in speech therapy, I am not going to criticize anybody who has the audacity, the bravery, to open their mouth in public, because that is one of the greatest acts of courage. Shouldn't be. They should realize that our community loves and respects them, and whether they are standing here or whether they are sitting in the back and singing their heart out to God and the community, that it doesn't matter that they will never get a record deal. That it doesn't matter that they are never going to be blessed as being one of the finalists in America's Got Talent. You laugh, but I had a congregant in Baltimore who came up to me after a Friday night service and asked me if next week I could tell somebody who had sung loudly this week to not sing next week, because it was distracting to her, because they weren't singing well enough. And I said to her, I said, excuse me, but I can't do that. And I said, because I was the kid in the choir who the choir director told, move your lips, but don't let anything come out. And it took another decade before I dared sing in public. Sang in the car a lot, but no one was there to criticize. And I'm never going to put anyone in a position. Do you think God cares how good your voice is? If God cared how good your voice was, God would have given you a better voice. God made you who you are, and that is nothing to ever have to apologize for. Which leads me to my next non-apology. I will never apologize for including anyone in this community. It doesn't matter what your race is. It doesn't matter what your gender is. It doesn't matter what your gender identity is. It doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is. If you dare to be a Jew in the 21st century, if you wish to be part of a conservative synagogue now, how would I ever have the chutzpah to tell you you're not welcome here? When someone whispers to me, well, Rabbi, do you know that so-and-so? Yeah, I know. And? Do you want an apology from me that somebody who happens to be gay wants to worship in our community? Do you want me to tell them, I'm sorry, you're not allowed here? Because there are congregations that still do that, and there was a long time when the conservative synagogues did that as well. But they would say, I'm sorry. Your family is not one that is welcome here. You are the wrong type. Maybe we think that you are a same-sex couple and we can't help you. Maybe we think that because one of your family members is not Jewish and you are really not even an interfaith family, but just one not Jewish, that therefore somehow your presence as a family will contaminate our congregation. I am sorry, but I am not sorry that the conservative movement has moved on. And if you're having trouble moving on, we can talk about that. Because I also want to include you. See, that's the thing about the conservative movement that makes it so incredibly hard and frustrating for so many people, is I am willing to accept everybody that will be accepted nowhere else, including those that won't accept each other. That doesn't mean I will accept behavior which is unaccepting of each other. But everybody is welcome to come and pray. Everybody is welcome to come and participate, to give whatever their spirit has to give for our community. And I am not going to gatekeep to make sure that you are the right sort of Jew. If you wish to be a Jew, you are the right sort of Jew. Done. We can all be better Jews, no matter what we come in with. We can all be better Jews. But wanting to be a Jew, you are welcome here. No apology for that. Because I know that our history, going all the way back 2,000 years, has dealt with this problem of those who think we must be more elitist. We must be more careful. We must have separate communities that are only of the purest, only the most saintly. When did God tell you the secret list of which commandments were okay to break and remain as part of the community and which commandments you couldn't break? Not that I'm saying that any of the people I listed before are breaking commandments, but even if you think they still are, did you decide that God personally told you? I can sit next to somebody that committed adultery. I can sit next to somebody who has had to serve time or pay a huge penalty for tax fraud or business malfeasance. I can sit next to somebody who is a Shabbat violator, but I can't sit next to somebody, insert the blank. Did God whisper in your ear that these people were beyond the pale? And if he did, was he also whispering in the ear to all the people for 3,000 years that said that the Jews were beyond the pale? Maybe they got a message just like you did of who is not welcome in God's world. I didn't get that message. I got the message that we all make mistakes. And I got the message that we're also all prone to mistakes with each other. And that we were given Yom Kippur to fix that. And that we were given Torah to guide us so that we could avoid it in the first place. But that we would still mess up. Because Yom Kippur is not a one-time. And I thank God for that. Because it means that when I make mistakes, I can fix them next year. It also means, for my next non-apology, that I can continually annoy my congregation. I'm serious. There was an old joke, and I took it to heart, that a rabbi they don't want to run out of town isn't a rabbi. And a rabbi who lets himself be run out of town isn't a man. If I'm only sitting up here giving you platitudes and cliches and comfortable aphorisms, all of the things that just make you feel warm and fuzzy about how wonderful and perfect you are as a human being, and that's all I ever give you, then I am a failure. Now, I know some of my sermons can be complicated and confusing. That I will apologize for. I do try my best, but sometimes my brain doesn't always cooperate. But it's only because I know that my congregation is capable of understanding more than it's good to be Jewish. Isn't it nice that we're here together? I mean, we do say those things, and we should feel those things. And you may notice I often will sprinkle those into my sermons, but if that's the extent, then what am I teaching? As I say in my classes time and time again, if you're not confused, you're not prepared to learn. Because if you're not confused, you think you already know it, you think you already understand it, and that means you're not listening to what comes next. You need to be in a state of confusion regularly in life, or else you are standing still, or worse, you are falling behind into complacency and petty arrogance. And so, I am not sorry that I continue to say things that will sometimes upset, sometimes will confuse, sometimes leave you going, I'm not sure how I feel about what the rabbi said. Good. If you're too quick to agree with what I said, I didn't do it right. I want you, as I go through this list, to say, well, I'm not sure about that rabbi. Did he mean X? I want you to have those questions afterwards. If I finished it up and tied it with a nice neat bow and there's no questions remaining, then I am a failure, and I would apologize for that. I am also not going to apologize for Israel. Now, there's two reasons for that. One, I'm not an Israeli citizen, and it would be the grossest, improper, and audacious thing to act as though somehow I speak on behalf of that entire nation. But I am Jewish, and I do care about Israel, and I love Israel dearly, and so I will say, I do not think Israel needs to apologize for what she does. Israel doesn't have to apologize for being Israel, for existing. Israel does not need to apologize. Does a government make mistakes? Show me a government that doesn't make mistakes. I can sit down and go through the congressional record of laws passed, even by a party that I vote for, and I will find things that make me scratch my head, shake my head, and bang my head on the wall. And are there some things that the Israeli government has done over the years that perhaps if they had appointed me as king, I would not have done? Sure, but I would have made other mistakes. And Israelis routinely criticize their government. It's kind of the number one sport in Israel. But there's a difference between criticizing or even gently critiquing, perhaps with a little humility of hoping to understand the situation better, rather than leaping to conclusions based off headlines that are shared through meme format, and apologizing. Israel needs no apology. Israel exists because Israel has the right to exist. She doesn't have to beg and scrape for permission to go on for another year. She doesn't need the adulation and the approval of the rest of the world to be deemed worthy of continuing to be in the fellowship of nations. Israel exists. If you have a problem with that, I can't apologize for it. If you really have a problem with it, talk to me afterwards, and I can help you maybe understand exactly what I'm trying to say. And the last thing that I'm not going to apologize for is being a religious Jew. Of course, Rabbi, you're a rabbi. You know, it's your name, Rabbi. You're obviously a religious Jew. Why would you ever apologize for that? Really, have you not noticed that there is a whiff about religion in the contemporary society? That it has picked up a little bit of a stink in the public square. That there are many who say, you're religious. And that little curl of the lip happens. The little eyebrow raised. The small step back. As though somehow you are a fanatic, that you might have on a suicide vest underneath your shirt. That you are single-handedly going around shutting down abortion clinics. That you are trying to drive a wedge into our society to turn it into a theocracy. Now, part of this stink is because there are people like that. There are zealots and terrorists and extremists. There are people who would love to turn the United States into a theocracy. There are people that would like to dominate their own community according to their interpretation of religious law and would love to impose it upon everyone that they can possibly do so, and would do so not gently, but with brutal and unremitting force. We can see exactly what that looks like by watching the protests unfolding in Iran. And when people see that, they say, all religion is stupid. Look at these people. That religion is stupid. And by that I don't mean Islam in general, but I mean that manifestation is stupid. And I stand right alongside of you, saying, how dare they treat their citizens in this way in the name of God? But I also then have to tell you, the person joining me in this criticism, that that's not what religion means. That's just people being jerks to each other. And they may have wrapped themselves in the Quran, in the Torah, in the Bible, in the teachings of the Hinduism, of Buddhism, all the places where people will behave beastily in the name of some divine truth. But that doesn't mean that is the actual religion that either they claim or that God wishes to be in the world. And so, yeah, I have to not apologize a lot for being religious. I can explain a lot about what it means to actually be religious, but I'm not apologizing for it, because I still believe that religion, in particular my own, is one of the most essential elements for bringing this world forward towards a state of redemption. Yes, that means I disagree with some people. And yes, that means of people who have been hurt by religion, my words are going to be hard to hear. That I am sorry for, but I don't apologize for. My heart hurts for those that have been abused, molested, exploited, tortured by people who claim to be acting as religious leaders. But that doesn't mean religion is wrong. And that doesn't mean that religion should go away. Because time and time again we have seen in those countries that have tried to ban all religion, lo and behold, some people are jerks. And if you don't give them the mantle of priest, rabbi, imam from which to act in that way, then they will take on the mantle of comrade and act in that way. People who wish to be evil will be evil. The vast majority of us, as I said at the beginning, do not wish to be evil. The vast majority need more guidance, more strength, more help, and religion provides that when done properly. Religion is what brought you all here today. Whether you think of yourself as being a religious Jew or not, you are. You believe in God, or you wouldn't be here. You may not believe in the cartoon God that is throwing lightning bolts. You may not believe in the caricature of God that is somehow laughing as others are burning in eternal damnation. I hope to God you don't believe in that sort of God. But you believe that there is such a thing as righteousness, as goodness, that has been given, transmitted, imbued within our people and all good people's hearts to help make this world what it should be, to make it Gan Eden, to make it a Garden of Eden, to not simply sit back and accept a nihilistic doctrine that the world is nothing more than a ball floating through the sky that is just going to be burnt to the cinder by the sun, and so we might as well live our life however we feel, and who cares the consequences? You are not people who believe that, and most people don't believe that. But we have to be the representatives who will say that's not a good, healthy way to live, and the alternative is not to follow the Ayatollahs of Iran or the preachers who wish to make a dominionist theocracy in the United States. That there is actually a path that's not either of those extremes. There is a middle way that is not dictatorial nor nihilistic, that is not pointless nor cruel. That's why you're here. Don't apologize for that. Own it. The world needs more religious Jews, just like you. You need to be seen as standing up for these things, and to do so unflinchingly, without apology. To say, no, I believe in my heart this is the right way. I believe there can be peace. I believe there should be equality. I believe that God created this world for better things than just strife and pain. Don't apologize for believing those things, because the world needs to hear them, needs to see you living that way. Don't shrink back. Don't apologize. Find out what else it is that you will never apologize for, that what is part of the core of you that is good and right, and even if from time to time it is frustrating, annoying, and you might even get burnt, nevertheless, even at that point, you would never say sorry for having chosen that path. That path leads here. That path leads to Gan Eden. It leads to redemption. Never say you're sorry for that. Gemar Chatima Tova.